In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to create a new sequence matching the settings parameters that we want to see for student films for COM 2250. Typically, these are all going to be shot in high definition format of 1920 by 1080 and at 24 frames per second because we want that film look. So if you've brought in all of your footage and you're ready to create your first new sequence, you can begin this by coming down to the project window and going to the new item icon and selecting the first option, sequence. When the new sequence dialog window appears, it's set to the first tab of sequence presets. We're going to come over to settings and make our changes manually. The editing mode should be set to custom. However, depending on where your project was left off or if anything else has been set, or you just have other preferences set for your system, it may be something other than custom. And if that's the case, just go ahead and choose the drop-down menu and bring this back to custom. The next option is our time base. We're going to change this to 24 frames per second without the drop code, 23976. We want this just to be even 24. The frame size should be 1920 by 1080. You should be working with square pixels, progressive scan, and by choosing 24 frames per second, this adjusted our display format to 24 FPS timecode. Nothing should have to change for audio. At 48,000 Hertz or 48 kilohertz, this is where we want to be. Audio samples is correct for the display format. Under video previews, this is where we're going to need to make another adjustment. Instead of iframe only, we want to choose the last option, which is QuickTime. And now under codec, it defaults to its first option, which is animation. And that's a good codec, but it's typically not ready to go for most video distribution platforms like YouTube and Vimeo, where we're going to send your videos. So come down, scroll down to find the H.264 option. We're going to choose that. Video previews can stay at 1920 by 1080. And then check these two boxes, maximum bit depth, and hit OK. And then maximum render quality, and hit OK. If you want to, you can begin by naming your sequence. You can always change it later after you've started this first sequence, but we'll call this Project 1, Cut 1. And when we hit OK, the new sequence has come over here into our project bin, and it's ready to go. This matches those specs that we just set. Let's say that you were already cutting and you got a little bit into your cut and you realized things weren't set up properly. You can always come back and change these later. Find that sequence, and with the sequence timeline window highlighted, come up to the sequence drop-down menu and choose sequence settings. Now the sequence settings dialog window is open, and we can change all those parameters that we just did when creating a new sequence. We can make those settings match here. So we would make sure this is custom, 24 frames per second, 1920 by 1080, square pixels, progressive scan, 24 frames timecode display format. Audio stays the same, and this will be QuickTime H.264 with our maximum bit depth and maximum render quality set here as well. So this sequence was already matching what we would want to see, but you might need to adjust them depending on what your sequence was set at if it wasn't set properly to begin with. In the next video, we're going to show how to export this sequence so that we can get it up to platforms like YouTube or Vimeo in the format that we want at the best quality that we can get.